In fact, the Senate Armed Services Committee plans to hold hearings in the new year. What could they reveal? Judith Miller joins us, adjunct fellow at the Manhattan Institute for Policy Research, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author and journalist, and of course a Fox News contributor. So, Judy, do you think the Russians did it?
Well, I think, as Senator McCain says, it's pretty clear that the Russians did something. And it's pretty clear, according to 17 U.S. intelligence agencies, that what they did helped Donald Trump. However, the motive of why they did what they did is still to be determined. And unlike hacking, which is fairly easy to detect, it's very hard to detect motive. So, of course, if I were Donald Trump and I had just narrowly won an electoral victory, unlike his claim that he won in a landslide, I would want to immediately dismiss these reports as ridiculous.
Do you think it's going away?
It is not going away, absolutely not. Number one, President Obama has made sure it's not going away because his full intelligence review guarantees that this tar baby is going to be delivered to Mr. Trump as a welcome present to the White House before inauguration on January 20th. But secondly, I think much more problematic for Mr. Trump, and that is that the Republicans in his own party who don't like the Russians and don't like all of the nice things he said about the Russians are going to hold their own hearings and demand to get to the bottom of this, not just because it is a really serious issue, but secondly because they dislike the thrust of his policy.
Well, John McCain today called Vladimir Putin a thug, a murderer, a killer. He said he was hacked in 2008. He absolutely believes that the Russians did interfere in this election. It's disturbing. We are Americans. We are all Americans. If it's true, it's a violation of our dignity and the very basis of this republic. Earlier in this chair, John Bolton, the former UN ambassador who's up for Secretary of State, in our weekly interview that I have with him, he thought, or raised the possibility, that this could be a false flag operation. As he put it, let's hear what John Bolton had to say.
It's not at all clear to me, just viewing this from the outside, that this hacking into the DNC and the RNC computers was not a false flag operation. Let's remember what FBI Director James Comey said dealing with Hillary's homebrew server. He said, "We found no direct evidence of Foreign Intelligence Service penetration, but given the nature of this, we didn't expect to," meaning a really sophisticated Foreign Intelligence Service would not leave any cyber fingerprints.
Well, I raised the issue and the question. That's an incredibly serious charge. If you're suggesting, I'm not saying he did in the interview, that it's an American intelligence operation, but that somebody, someplace, not the Russians, did this.
Right. It is a serious charge, and it's yet another reason why there has to not only be an intelligence review, but a real review by the Senate. You know, when WMD estimates turned out to be wrong, we had at least 3 independent reviews, 2 of them on Capitol Hill and 1 a commission, that looked into how this terrible mistake happened. I think we need exactly the same thing now, especially because the FBI and the CIA seem to have rather different interpretations of what happened.
Well, they also apparently have 2 different standards. The FBI has a more criminal, evidentiary type of standard, while the CIA does all the intellectual brainiac analysis stuff.
Right. And then we do know that the CIA from time to time has been accused of politicizing intelligence, and we know that Mike Flynn, the man who's slated to be the incoming president's NSC advisor, also said that, he has a lot of concerns about the intelligence community because he was fired, he claims, in part because he disagreed with the assessment that ISIS was on the retreat. So there's a lot of mistrust of the intelligence community, understandably, given how often they've gotten things wrong. But for the incoming president to pick a fight with the people upon whom he's going to depend for information is really a very risky strategy for Mr. Trump.
What type of message does that send to the world when the President of the United States, President-elect, raises questions about the veracity and credibility of American intelligence that he's going to have to rely on for us to keep us safe and to protect us over the next 4 years?
Well, if the CIA's record were better, that charge would fall flat. But because the CIA's record is spotty, and because Mr. Trump is known for doing unorthodox things that turn out to be right, I think you have to give him at least a benefit of the doubt. He said he thinks these charges are ridiculous. Let's find out. He ought to welcome such an inquiry if he has nothing to hide and if, in fact, the Russians didn't do this.
And finally, you have a lot of experience about all the secret stuff, all that secret stuff.
Right.
What's your gut? I mean, how do we find out about this? What should we as Americans believe?
My gut is that the Russians interfered. Absolutely. I believe that, given what my reporting so far about what we seem to know. I think the motive is much less certain, and I think that's what these inquiries will ultimately focus on. And also, the broader question is, what kind of policy should we have with Russia? Even if Russia did this, how do we stop them from doing it again? And does that mean that we shouldn't be working with them on Syria, against ISIS, and in other areas where we have common interests? I think those are separate issues that tend to get all muddled together. And that's why I want them separated out in this issue of fact versus motivation sorted out.
All right, Judy, and no American wants our republic violated.
Absolutely. Very serious charge.
Judy Miller, thanks.
Thank you.
As always.